Welcome to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies, Ian Richardson, for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Carrie Richardson.
More of this right here.
You're a wide talker.
And this is like an Indian kind of thing. This is what Indians do. They get distracted by looking at hands waving all the time.
You get like wider as you get more excited, or just like faster.
All of it, and then my eyes get bigger, and that's usually. And then people are like, "Is he mad?" No, I'm like, "No, I'm just excited." So people mistake the excitement sometimes for anger. I get very passionate, and I love debating. That's a South Indian trait, by the way. So South Indians love debate. We love arguing about stuff. But
There's some interesting cultural differences between founders from different countries. Like every time I've worked with an Israeli founder, I just love them. They don't mince their words. If something is garbage, they say that it's garbage, and they don't shit sandwich it. It's just, this is wrong. How are you going to fix it? There's no pleasantries.
You are probably part Israeli and don't realize it because you just described your personality. So I can see why you get along.
Smooth my personality out a little bit to make myself a little more palatable, but and now that I have a little bit of a retirement nest egg, I'm even less inclined to compromise. So it's like, no, I don't have time to listen to your bullshit today. I gotta go.
That's what happens when you have choice. You have some financial freedom, right?
What life is like for Ian, though.
Hey, look, I see a big smile on his face every time. So obviously you guys are doing something right.
It's a good balance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I need to catch up with him. I haven't seen him in a bit.
Are you? He's not going to be at PAX 8.
Okay. I got to see is he going to any conference events, or is it more?
He is only going to conferences where I've been invited to speak at kind of mode right now.
Funny you say that, because PAX 8 is on the bubble for me right now. I'm like, hey, look, if I'm not speaking, then maybe should I go? Because I've been traveling a lot. And so it's my wife had made the comment, like, you haven't been around, and it like that one hurt. Like because I love my family, I love my kids, and want to be present. And lately there's been a lot of travel, and there's been phases at Liongard where there's been a lot of travel, and this is one of those. Much of it has to do with beating the drum on our message, and I enjoy that, but then I also miss my family. So when I hear that, that one hits home.
How do we get a speaking spot at the Liongard conference?
Stephanie Weigel joined the team as of Monday. And what's been really cool is it was actually an attempt to try to get Vin back into product where I'm at. And it's been successful. So Vin and I are actually doing our co-founder thing. We're both focused on product design and user experience and everything that our customers see when they interact with Liongard. And I'm largely in charge of the product vision and go to market and how the product is going to deliver on like the finished outcome. And we've got this team of like our head of engineering, he's our CTO, Colin, who's in charge of all the raw development execution of all of this craziness. And then Wendy, who's on my team, she's amazing at making sure all the planes take off and they all land properly and make sure the roadmap execution is great. And she's the one that says no to all the crazy ideas, to say, nope, to hit the schedule, we got to do this. I told her, like, you got to keep us accountable. And she's great at that. So I'm really liking where we're at team-wise on the product engineering side, which is a very complex dance that we have at Liongard. There's a lot going on.
So the band got back together.
Yeah. That's why it just feels like going back to the early days, except we're much more massive than we ever, like back in 2018 when we were trying to close our first customer. And now, we're deployed in like 70,000 end businesses globally and 1,500 plus MSPs. And it's just, this massive scale that we're at. And yet we can think in terms of, okay, now we're going to continue to drive the vision and then do it with focus, because with Michelle coming on board a little over a year ago, I was able to recruit her, and it was a long process. During that process, I realized how hard it is to hire a CEO and how scary it is to hand over the baton. I'm so happy that she joined the team because she brought a lot of focus to Liongard and taking us back to our original founding idea. And that's what when she came to join the team, she said, Joe, why don't you and Vin, like, why aren't we focusing on the original idea, which was based on more of a focus on cybersecurity, which was identifying the source and predicting where a breach would happen using the unique technology that we had built. And we started there, but in 2017 and 2018, when we were talking about the attack surface, people were like, nah, that's not cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is finding the intruder. It's about finding the anomalous thing. And Carrie, the thing that I always tell folks is, why do we turn on the security alarm and keep the front door open? Because that's what everybody's doing. They turn on the security alarm and keep the front door open. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, guys, like, read how data breaches are happening. It's really basic stuff, but it's lots of basic things. And it's a lot. And you cannot, it's not easy. And I'm not saying it's easy, but we've got to rethink what it means to protect our environments. And sometimes it's the blocking and tackling. And that's what every CIO and CISO says. But it's a lot of it because we have, even with our business, we've got 80 to 100 different tools that we use at Liongard. And I consider ourselves sizable, but it's ridiculous that we have to use that many tools. But that's just what you do. I don't know, how many tools do you have, Carrie?
Not that many, because Ian refuses to allow me to.
You got someone holding you accountable to that?
Tool-wise, we're a two-person consulting business. We're not nearly the scale that Liongard requires, but with Ian having an MSP background, of course, security is,
Yep.
I hate using a password manager. I hate it with the fire of 1,000 suns, but I use it.
Yeah, it's one of those tools, right? That's where you get into this whole cat and mouse game of how much is enough in terms of security. When I capital raised, it was all about this concept of the number of tools that we deploy are driven based on innovation and outcomes that we're trying to drive. And so if you're trying to do really neat things for your customers and you're trying to drive these amazing outcomes, you're going to use technology to make that happen. And when you do that, every time you add something new, the attack surface increases. And then what happens? There's more security to take care of. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And guess what? The attack surface is anything that a threat actor chooses to leverage or subvert. And that could be humans, it could be a process, it could be software to get to their targeted outcome that they want to do. Whatever that is. It could be chaos, it could be ransoming you for money. And it's sad that it comes down to that, but that's really where we're at right now. And the headlines are just racing by. And so when I think about Michelle joining the team a little over last year, it was good timing for us to take this focus where we just got really wide. Like, Liongard could do anything, right? And we can solve all of these things. And then when you told somebody about Liongard, they're like, what do you do really well? And it just turned into, it felt like more of a buffet table rather than the fine piece of art that I was really like, look, this is the entree. This is what we were about. And it was refreshing to have Michelle come and say, hey, let's focus on the original use case. So for me to talk about protecting our environments at scale, doing it in a way that's productive, that allows an MSP to be profitable, for an end business to achieve their outcome. These are things that are just, those are things I get very passionate about. And it's very easy for me to talk about. And so the blessing we have, though, is that Gartner labeled the category we were in. And so this is where it gets interesting when you bring somebody in as a CEO and you've been the CEO. There's a new element. There's a boss, right? The CEO is the boss. And so Michelle ultimately makes a decision. And in a lot of ways, I'm advising her on things that I'm like, hey, I think this is the idea and this is where we need to position. But ultimately, Michelle has to make that decision and align with our board to make sure that we execute. And it's both, like, it's kind of interesting. Michelle and I are like yin and yang, like the way that we think is very similar, but our approaches are different. And then I find that much like when I work with Vincent, the original idea gets elevated. You might have this thing, and then you start interacting with Michelle, and then it's boom. And by the end of it, it's whoa, it's this greater thing. And that's when I find the best interactions, when you have that yin and yang where it turns into a debate, but the outcome is that much better at the very end. And I did that with Vin as well. And then the next day I'm like, oh, that's what he was trying to tell me. Or this is what Michelle was trying to explain. And then it's like light bulb moment. And then the whole thing comes together and it's like this better thing. And that's the state that I'm at right now, where it's like we're elevating the game, and our customers right now, I think, are starting to see a velocity that they were seeing in the early days of Liongard, and it's happening again. And we're releasing at a very fast rate. So when 2018, when Doberman came on board with us, right, when he joined us early on, he saw that velocity. And I think our partners are experiencing that now. And it's specifically about creating focus in the business.
Had wonderful things to say about Liongard, and he's always been an early adopter of technology that he thought was going to be a good use case for anyone.
Yeah, he's a visionary and early adopter, right? I don't know if you've read Crossing the Chasm. It's an amazing book, and every founder should read it. And that curve, that bell curve arc that you see, and there's a gap, that's from that book. And Crossing the Chasm is an amazing book that talks about the types of buyers that exist. And where we are right now is what I term is in that midstream of crossing the chasm, which is you have those early adopters, those visionaries who buy, and then the next stage after that, those are the folks that you can start to scale your business on, and they will buy you even though the product isn't perfect, but they know where you're headed, and they buy on the vision. And they love the journey early on. They're just fixated on, I want to test out the new thing. I want to reap the early benefits and get an advantage from that. But I'm okay with the rough edges. But then there's this chasm that every founder faces, which is trying to get to the mainstream market. And the mainstream buyer finds all those rough edges unacceptable. And so that we're in that cross to get to that mainstream market that says, oh, okay, I just totally get Liongard. It's real simple to understand. And I need it. I need one of those, right? I need the managed attack surface. That's what I need. And that's what we're positioning on now in a way that I feel really confident about that. And we can maybe rewatch this and listen to this maybe 2 years from now. I'm predicting something happening in the cyber security market around something that I refer to as the left of boom category of products, which is what do you do ahead of a breach rather than after an actor has gotten in? What do you do ahead at scale to either make the attempt by a threat actor irrelevant or the blast radius reduced significantly? That area is consolidating around this category called attack surface management. But my hypothesis and our team's hypothesis is that the customer doesn't want another tool. They want an outcome. What they want is they want a managed attack surface. They want to take all their stress and take it from their lap and put it in somebody else's lap and go, you got that, right? Which is what every end customer says to an MSP. You got that, right? And Ian probably shudders if he hears that, but that's what we always got from our customers, which is, hey, I don't know this stuff. That's why I hired you. You take care of that.
From a sales perspective, talking about right of boom is almost like saying to a customer, you're probably going to get breached. And so when that happens, we're going to do this. And the minute I hear that as an end user, I think, you guys can't protect me. So if now we have conversations around attack surface and what happens before, how do you stop that from happening? How do you make it so that I don't have to spend thousands of dollars remediating? How do you make it so I don't have to make costly insurance claims? How do you make it so that my vendors and my buyers can all interact with me? I'm way more interested in buying that than I am in buying, if it happens, we'll fix it.
We should just have you sell Liongard, because you just covered a bunch of the major topics, which is when you talk to an end customer or when I talk to an MSP, I would say, does your end customer, did they sign up with you so you can chase an intruder, or did they sign up with you to set it up right the first time? And then I pause and I wait for their answer. And they're like, yeah, of course they wanted me to set it up right the first time. So then I say, how much time and money do you spend on that versus spending money and focus and time on chasing an intruder? Because when you start to realize where you're spending your time, then you take a zoom back out and you go, oh, every dollar spent left of boom is actually more productive than every dollar spent right of boom dealing in mid-incident, right? So you don't want to deal with the insurance companies, which they're there as a parachute. Thankfully, they're there, but you don't want to give them noise. You want to deal with them when there's a really interestingly tough situation that you could not stop. But man, why are you even there if the front door was open? If had Carrie 123 as a password and you didn't have MFA on, guess what,
It's
Carrie?
Ian
Everyone has your
123.
password. Okay. You went to expert level. We would have never guessed that. Never. So yeah, that's the problem. And so do you need those systems? Yes. But man, why aren't you spending more time on the front door? Because that's just frustrating, right? And this is when everyone does this. When they read a headline and they realize why it happened, they do this. But what they don't realize is there's hundreds and thousands of those things to take care of. And that's why the attack surface is so tough. And that's why I'm so excited about having this focus now and the luxury of being able to take Liongard really laser focused to solving that problem and positioning around this thing that ultimately I think will makes a huge dent around solving for cybersecurity challenges that everyone's facing.
I think it just makes it a whole lot easier to sell, right? I learned that lesson from my lawyer early on. I was like, do I really need this? Carrie, you can pay me to do it now, or you can pay me to fix it later. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You're going to pay me anyway. So you only have to learn that lesson once.
Okay.
It's a very expensive lesson. And then all of a sudden, prophylactic or preventative all of a sudden seems like a walk in the park compared to the astronomical bill because you didn't read that contract.
It's nutrition, right? If you put bad things in your body, no amount of working out is going to help you. The reality is that, unfortunately, that kind of thought process is less sexy. It's just like the whole offense defense thing, which everyone follows teams that have strong offenses. But what wins championships? A strong defense. And so it's the same analogies. They work time and time again. And once everyone realizes, what that is and they start to focus there, we'll start to see tangible impact. And that's what I'm beating the drum about. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm having a little bit more freedom to do that. Thankfully, because Michelle's here to work with the board, do the CEO stuff, which is really hard work and involves a lot of context switching. So it's something that I'm grateful for.
So one of the things that we talked about when we were preparing for the podcast was that this is your second rodeo. You were the CEO of an MSP, then you became the CEO of a software firm, and now you are reporting to the CEO of your own business. What's it like to not be the boss?
It's interesting. At my MSP, I was one of the owners, but I was the COO and there was a CEO there. So I've had experience with this, but I'm in a better situation now learning from that prior experience. It took me a couple months to get used to it. It was like putting on a new pair of shoes and I had to get comfortable with it. I really got to a moment where I'm like, okay, is this the right spot for me? I have to be honest with myself. After you bring the CEO in, you're like, okay, am I still needed here? Am I providing value here? Am I still operating in my 10X? And I took a vacation break, came back, had time to reflect. And man, I just turned on a new gear and I'm like, yes, I am in the right spot. I want to write the next couple chapters here and I want to keep moving and I want to see where this thing goes because we haven't gotten to where I wanted to get the business to yet. And I think we're rapidly getting there. And that's what I'm excited about right now, being able to accelerate to that, knowing that Michelle's really moving at light speed. She's one of the fastest executives I've ever worked with in my life. She can make decisions in a millisecond. And it's awe-inspiring when I watch what she does. Those are things I could have learned. So it's interesting seeing what lessons learned, even watching someone do things. And we work together. We give each other's critical feedback and we all do our thing. So yeah.
That sounds challenging, actually. I don't know how I'd respond to feedback from the person who'd been running my business for a year when I'd been running it for 7.
That's 9. Yeah, it was 9 years. I've always had this feeling that the business Liongard is not show Alapat. Liongard is Liongard. And I'm on the journey with Liongard. I didn't have that realization in my previous business, and it was unhealthy because I merged myself with the business too tightly. I've tried to keep those two things separate because Liongard has its own personality and can also have a different CEO than Joe Alapat and seeing really amazing outcomes with Michelle in the CEO seat. And that's awesome. And when you can make that decision, which I think a lot of founders, it's a tough decision to make. It was tough for me as well. But I think it's a very productive thing to consider at all times. Am I in the right seat?
Most of the entrepreneurs that I have spoken to who hired or who had a new CEO were leaving their business. They had an earnout that they were responsible working on, and they just had to bide their time and wait, whereas you seem to be really rolling up your sleeves and getting a newfound appreciation and enthusiasm for your business. So congratulations. That sounds amazing.
Thank you. That was awesome.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
All right, Carrie. See you soon.
You've been listening to Win with Richardson and Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help.